you for joining us for this Art in the Libraries virtual program. I'm Beth Torin, Interdisciplinary Cultural and Film Studies Librarian at WVU, and I'm here for Sally Brown, who's the Exhibits Coordinator for WVU. And I'm honored to turn this over to Carrie Gunter Seymour, the Poet Laureate of Ohio and a recipient of the 2021 Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship. Her poetry includes A Place So Deep Inside America, It Can't Be Seen, published by Asian-Appalachian Editions 2020, which won a 2020 Ohio Poet of the Year award. And she also has the chapbook Serving by Crisis Chronicle Press in 2018. Her poems have appeared in numerous journals and publications, including Rattle, One, the LA Times, and the New York Times. Her work has been featured on Verse Daily, Cultural Daily, World Literature Today, and Poem a Day. So a ninth generation Appalachian, she is the editor of I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, Ohio's Appalachian Voices, and the Women of Appalachia Project's anthology series, Women Speak. Gunter Seymour is the founder, curator, and host of Spoken and Heard, a seasonal performance series featuring poets, writers, and musicians from across the country. She is an artist in residence at the Wexner Center for the Arts and a 2021-22 Pillar of Prosperity Fellow for the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio. And I'm going to put some links to learn more about her and her work in the chat. Thank you, Carrie.
Oh my goodness, Beth, thank you. Oh, that was a mouthful. That was very kind of you. Thank you so much. And as I mentioned, often, in fact, every time but this one, both Beth and Sally Brown have greeted us, and they are our hosts from West Virginia University. We are just so honored to be here today as guests of WVU Morgantown Libraries, along with support from the Women's Resource Center, the West Virginia University LGBTQ+ Center, and the Center for Women's and Gender Studies. And this is particularly interesting this month, right? And this really could not have happened without Sally, who is the exhibits program coordinator at West Virginia University Libraries, and Beth Torin, who is the interdisciplinary cultural and film studies librarian. But today she's our goddess of technical support, which we are just so grateful for. And she has really stepped up for us today. This is Women of Appalachia Project's 13th season, and its 5th season with West Virginia University Libraries. And we're so grateful for their unflinching support. So when I'm asked to describe the Women of Appalachia Project, I say this. The mission of WOAP is to encourage, enrich, and empower Appalachian female writers and artists and our communities through live and published presentations of spoken word and fine art. Now, the success of this organization is based on the work of every single woman who does, has, or will someday take part, whether as a participant, a volunteer, a partner, or supporter. We are a sisterhood. All for one, one for all, working toward the same goal, to lift up Appalachia and showcase it in all its magnificent glory. We are a Prindy winner, a Weatherford Award winner, state and municipal poet laureates, Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominees, authors of acclaimed books, and our Facebook page has 47,000 friends from all over the world. So we'll be reading today from this season's Women Speak anthology, which is available for purchase online. And I would like very much to introduce our amazing publisher, Haley Mitchell-Hagen, who is the owner-operator of Sheila Nagig Editions. Yes, everybody's clapping, and I'm so happy because she's the hardest working woman in publishing today, I'll tell you that. So Haley, give us a few words, and I'll put the link in the chat to where people can buy the book if they want to buy it today.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I have a blurred out background today because the Cardinal Project is going on behind me full force. Lots of books flying off the shelves for that one. And of course, I have plenty of copies of Women Speak #7 too. And I'm just so excited to hear you all today. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Haley. Again, I hope y'all realize the kind of time that Haley puts into the publications that she presents. She spends time herself that normally one would pay an editor for, and she provides those services herself. So we are just so very grateful. So I thought I might get us started today and read one of my own poems from the book. And it's on page 15. If any of you have the book and you'd like to join in. And this one's called Bone Thin. Sunday morning, the alarm set for dawn. I gargle lemon water to loosen phlegm, open vocal cords. Mother, postured at the piano, paces me up and down the major scales. Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? I dress in a starched white blouse, an A-line skirt hemmed precisely below the knee. Mother stands behind me in the mirror, cat eyeglasses, Pentecostal bun, hot curls my ragged mane into a semblance of respectable. Later, in the choir loft, Mother leans, her coffee breath all over me, whispers loud enough for the soprano section to hear. You're too pretty to be so fat. It is my honor to welcome you to Women Speak.
Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Torin. I'm in Morgantown, West Virginia. This is my second year being in the Women of Appalachia anthology, and I have a short poem. Tigers. The sky looks nothing like it did then. I remember saber-toothed tigers sleeping under the stars, their soft fur and warm bodies snuggling on all sides of me. Father, mind their bones, burn to run this carousel where I ride this hideous plastic caricature of one. The sky looks nothing like it did then.
Hi, I'm Annette Calandros. I'm in Houston, Texas. And I'm reading, this is my first year with Women of Appalachia Project. And I'm reading my poem, I'm more. I'm more than breath or bones. I am the Malungian veins of my many great-grandmothers as they run through the coal mines of West Virginia into Kentucky and Tennessee. I am more than breath or bones. I am my mother's and my grandmother's blood, flooding the snow melt rivers of Appalachia. I am more than breath or bones. I am my mother's iron ore, her steel, torn from the hollows among the mountains of West Virginia during the Great Depression. I am more than breath and bone. I am the centrifuge of history and heritage, of spirits and earth, of women who held up mountains for their children. I am more than breath and bone. We my four mothers and I, mother the culmination of the next generations to hold up the sky, the sun, the stars, the moon for their children.
Hi, I'm Connie Kinsey, and this is my third year with the Women of Appalachian Project, and I'm in Ona, West Virginia. I am a high-tech hillbilly woman. I am wired, wireless, and Bluetooth. I have a desktop computer, a tablet, a smartphone, a traveling computer, and then there is the laptop. I would jump into a dumpster to save the laptop. On it, I have photos, legal documents, all of my writing, and my passwords to the world. I have music files and video files. I have love letters and formal complaints. I have haiku and recipes. My life preserved in pixels, in bits and bytes, zeros and ones. I bought that particular model for the sound system. I listen to a lot of music on this thing. Sometimes music is important to me. Other times I need silence. But when I want music, I want it good and loud. I load up a playlist and dance in front of this laptop, speakers blaring, body whirling. The laptop is 17 inches in silver. The large screen lets me have more tabs open. I multitask when I'm on the laptop. Social media, writing, solitaire, email, and work, garden plans and budgets, photo editing and messaging. My whole life is in there. Truly, I don't watch TV, I Facebook. I don't write letters. I have long rambling emails with family and friends. I have thousands of photos. Thousands just from 2 weeks in Spain alone. I have email going back to the early 90s. Yes, really. It's the archive of my life. The laptop used to be slick and shiny, but is now covered in crumbs and fingerprints. It's made of metal and silicon and wires and magic. I'm an IT person, and even I don't understand how it works. I blog from the laptop. I meet new people on the laptop. I reconnected with an old high school friend who is now my boyfriend while on the laptop. He and I communicate daily via the laptop. It's not a machine, it's a conduit. I'd like it even better if it were blue. Blue is my favorite color, and the laptop is one of my favorite things. It's the first thing I check in the morning after pouring coffee and feeding the dogs, and it's the last thing I do at night. It's incomparable, really. The laptop picks up my memories and my moods, memes and statuses. I can sit in my comfortable chair and enter other worlds. I eat at the laptop. The flotsam and jetsam of my life end up there. I just brush it off. The machine needs a thorough cleaning, as do most things in my life. The keyboard is quiet. There is some noise. I can hear the keys click, but it's not obtrusive. It's comforting. The sound of productivity, the sound of creativity, the sound of me being me. I feel blessed to be living in this time. The cyber revolution will be studied for years to come. I was on the internet before sound and pictures, before music and photos, before internet shopping, before Wi-Fi and video, back on a green screen with a flashing cursor. I hung out in Usenet, not the first, but one of the very first social internet gathering spots, back when everybody on the net knew everyone else, or at least recognized their email address. Those were great, heady times. We knew it was a revolution. We knew we were exploring frontiers. 1980s, I talked about my friends on the net. My son thought I was talking about a woman named The Net. He drew a picture of her. I hope that my grandchildren find my digital life interesting. I think by the time I have grandchildren, this will all be so old hat that the magic will be gone. It will be just a utility like the phone. But now it's special. We're still on the frontier, though it's less wild. Or maybe more. I think that depends on your perspective. The laptop is awe, magic, and opportunity. It is my confidant and my muse. It houses my friends, my family, and my creativity. It is the medium I work in. It is my art. I am a high-tech hillbilly woman. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jenny Parfitt. I am reading today from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And this is my second year. I just have one poem for you today. My mother's hands. My sister has my mother's hands, they say, and I have her nose. Part and parcel, she's been prized apart, reappropriated, given new life for new use on other bodies. How would she feel about this, I wonder, to know that she lives on, a piece here, a part there, her cheekbones on a niece, her eyebrows on a grandchild? Does someone get the belly laugh and the faraway look in faded blue eyes? Who gets the Ivy League vocabulary that belies a 7th grade education? And who receives the moribund heart, the pre-diabetes, the end-stage renal disease? Who is the lucky recipient of the womb that birthed a baker's dozen, one of which was me? Would she scoff modestly, claim that even if they were her features, they surely looked better on someone else? Or would she smile her crooked smile that my daughter has, to know that she continues on life after death? I think she'd be happy in an absurd sort of way. She'd nod her snowy head slowly, look carefully at the new baby through rheumy eyes, and say, why, she's the spitting image of my grandmother. Thank you.
Hello, I am Sherelle Weigl. I think I first was part of Women of Appalachia maybe in 2016, and have been lucky to be juried in almost every year with the exception of one or two. I live in Parkersburg, West Virginia, but I'm coming to you today from snowy Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I have two poems, short poems I would like to share. The first one, January Alone. Across Pine Lane, afternoon, dark in its winter cloak, nuzzles the tethered brown goat, stretching his neck toward what foliage is left on the still green shrub. Only hunger swings the pendulum between here and there as long shadows shutter what is left of the light. At 4 o'clock, a waxing gibbous moon hangs in the bluest sky this year, promises yet another bright night. Crows circle and glide in an almost setting sun. Cadence of melting snow thrums an ancient rhythm heard only by those alone this day. Over the frozen valley, early evening becomes a silver sliver of vein. Water, as the James River merges toward tomorrow, sings its own liquid song, certain as sorrow of its own destination. Where will this river go when no one is watching? The next poem is Say I Was a Poet. After I die, prop the bones of a beautiful bird in my mouth. Call a medicine woman back from my home star. Offer tobacco, cedar, sage, sweetgrass, the 7 silent petitions of passage. For all these words are only feathers from the dark hollow of my throat, plumes that wait for a wing to rise, to lift, to fly, to soar from my lips, fingers, to become the prayer of fire, hitching a ride homeward. Thank you.
I'm Mary Lucille Debary. I'm in Morgantown and was raised in Harrisville, West Virginia. This is the second year that I've had a poem accepted by Women Speak. The note accompanying my poem, printed along with it, reads, "The newspaper account is found in Ritchie County Crimes and Calamities, reports from the local, state, and national press, 1847-1922, compiled 2011 by John M. Jackson." The poem is Barn Hill. A smooth, easy, but exhilarating climb. Meadow hilltop, flat for flying homemade kites. The barn long gone, a nighttime fire, flashing flames, helpless neighbors racing. A glare illuminated the town till the light of day was surpassed, the Ritchie Gazette editor recalled. On May 10th, 1879, he was aroused from slumber by the courthouse bell. No foundation stones, just a roofless, grassy dugout reminiscent of an amphitheater. The building was a mass of flames shooting far up into the heavens. Autumn olive encroaches on daffodil rose. Hedgerow vultures stretch wake-up wings. Former acreage subtracted by eminent domain to ensure no structures near a potential lake. Not a breeze strong enough to stir a leaf. If so, half the town would have been in ruins. Treasured woodland paths overgrown, boundary fences tangled, rusted orange. Signs, no hunting, no trespassing.
Hello, I'm Lois Spencer, and I'm from Debary, Ohio. I've been privileged to have stories in the last three, including this, Women Speak with WOAP. What I'm going to read today is of just the beginning of a story. It begins on page 46, and I've entitled this Lily. Lily appeared in our 5th grade class the first day back after Christmas break. When Miss Brothers attempted to introduce her, Lily turned beet red and buried her face in the skinny arms folded on her desk. Neatly braided pigtails fell on either side of a body that looked brittle enough to break. A lot of eye rolling passed around the classroom and a few giggles, but Miss Brothers quashed it with a look and went on with class like nothing had happened. During recess, Lily stayed at her desk while the rest of us bundled into coats and boots. Groups of comrades huddled amid piles of dingy snow, shriveling toward oblivion. And Stevie and I wandered over to the swings and kicked at the ice in the wells beneath. An old soul possessed of a keen, imaginative mind. Stevie never worried about fitting in, while I hated being a misfit. But my dad had a spotty work history and stood out among the bevy of fathers who worked themselves into early graves. And Mom and I lived with the consequences. None of that mattered to Stevie any more than my being a girl. Recess was nearly over when I finally asked for his take on Lily's reaction that morning. One of Stevie's passions was watching black and white World War II movies, so his answer shouldn't have surprised me. Could be something like shell shock. I stopped kicking and stared at him. How many fifth grade girls have you seen in a war? Stevie's wide gray eyes were fixed on a batch of snow clouds amassing in the west. You don't have to be in a war for bad things to happen. My feet had grown as frozen as the ice we'd been kicking, so I went inside ahead of the bell. In the classroom, I found Lily at her desk, her surprisingly blue eyes staring through one of the tall windows into the dark winter day. From the adjoining cloakroom, I heard voices. Miss Brothers, flute-like, Mr. Sellers, so deep it reverberated inside the narrow hook-lined space. Something told me they were discussing Lily. Miss Brothers' head popped around the open door. You're early, Missy. Is something wrong? My feet got cold. She gestured me in, and I caught a faint scent of mothballs as the principal's wool suit passed close to my nose. Alone with Miss Brothers, I wanted to ask her about Lily, but I feared she would think I'd been eavesdropping. That afternoon, half numb from cold, I rushed into the living room. Mom had just added a log to the fireplace and was positioning it with the poker, cigarette held steady in her teeth. Sparks shot up from the bed of red coals, as though intent on escaping through the chimney. Some sacrificing their freedom to ignite tiny outcroppings on the new log where smaller branches had once sprouted. I tossed my coat aside and plopped into a wide upholstered rocker. Mom returned the poker to its stand and knelt to loosen my boot latches ahead of my stiff, reddened fingers. When my boots were dripping on the hearth, she scooted me over and joined me in the rocker, her warmth hastening my thaw. The combined sense of tobacco, Castile soap, and wood smoke assured me I was home, and home had always meant safety. But Stevie's comment about Lily, along with my own musings, had teased open a worrisome thought. Was something bad, worse than what I'd learned to tolerate, waiting for me? During the summer harvest, my great uncle Hank showed up routinely with produce from his garden. Tomatoes and green beans we couldn't use up right then, Mom cold packed in mason jars for winter. When the weather grew cold, he brought wood for the fireplace and cook stove, and sometimes side meat after butchering. When he came bearing gifts, Mom always offered him a cup of coffee and a slice of whatever she had baked, even if he was, as she put it, 3 sheets in the wind. She could slip the cup and plate onto the table in front of him and skirt away without a pause. But I was never quick enough. Uncle Hank's moist, insistent hand would pull me to his side as he demanded a little bit of sugar. The hand released me only after I had kissed the whiskery cheek. The worst part was feeling that a pair of red-rimmed eyes, clouded with alcohol, could see right through every stitch I had on. While Mom never intervened, she never left me alone with him either. She knew something I didn't, and whatever it was, put me on high alert. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellis Elliott, and I live in Juno Beach, Florida currently. And this is my first year with this amazing group of people. I have 2 poems for you today. Rusted Nails and Rat Bones. What are these letters from Daniel, but earnest spells he cast for us, like a valley veiled in fog of well-meant wishes? And how do I tell him there is much more to fear than rebels in our hills? Children escape my body like blackbirds. Wide-jawed and hungry, I sought anything we could find to eat, filled apron pockets heavy with persimmons and pokeweed. Dan Jr.'s foot got pierced through by a barn nail. I packed a poultice of sumac and sweet gum and prayed for it to work, like the jug of pennyroyal tea Granny Grills brought. After Daniel's last stay, I gulped it bitter without sugar, let it gush down my chin and soak my chest. I begged the Lord's forgiveness, asked mercy for my intent to prevent another suckling mouth at my breast. What is our nest made of but rusted nails and rat bones in the woodpile, half-empty cookpots and equal parts yearning and dread? I wring my bloodied rags at creekside, flutters hushed in my heaving belly as I weep. Unseen. Sometimes I can't find God in the scrawl of blue mountains around me. Try as I might to pull a bucket of sense from the well of the earth, to pour floods on the fires of war in the blue mountains around me. I might pull bulbs to brew, chant verses, conjure storms that pour, then flood. The fires of war roll from the hills into homes. Women holler for my bulbs to brew, chant verses, conjure storms as balm for raw palms. Light to drink the darkness rolling from hills into homes. Women holler over sick beds, small coffins. Mothers are balm for raw palms. Light that drinks darkness, buckets of sense from the well of the earth. Mothers holler over sick beds, small coffins, and sometimes I can't find God in the scroll. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Donna Weems, and I live in Morgantown, West Virginia. This is my 2nd year with Women Speak. I have 2 songs for you. The first one is Waters Rising. My poor crayons deep in cloud, listen to the water sing out loud. Red spruce forest steeped in snow, the soil brings with overflow. Water seeps through grass and moss, from under logs and cracks in rocks. Once a gully, now a stream bed, the mountain is its watershed. Waters are rising, arise from your bed. Waters are rising, clear your head. Join the chorus when the pitch is found. When singing together, voices resound. Run spills over woody banks, rushing past rocks and soil dank. Once a trickle, now deep and strong, winter's thunder and valleys long. The red mountains, the full voice
voice roar, the red creeks rising upon its shore. Rolling rocks and bending trees, winter's thaw has set red. Waters are rising for you. Waters are rising clear ahead. Join the chorus when the pitch is found, when singing together, voices resound. Drive for black waterfalls, or shavers, nothing for stalls. Waters gathering from their source, the mighty trees, raging voice. Waters are rising, waters are rising.
The next one is Ballad of the Lady of the Wood.
I met a maiden in the wood, a reckoning in me stirred. Her eyes searched mine, long questioning. She said not a word. Beholding and transfixed with awe, I knew no one could claim her. Her beauty so ephemeral, yet she was no stranger. Her hair was bound in bunting blue, her dress in buttonwood flowers, shoulders draped in a lacy cape made from virgin's bower. I had entered a world more perfect than I could ever create. Its beauty is in the abundance of life in its native state. I could not reach out to touch her, for I knew she would disappear. I stood rooted and unmoving in hope and in fear. The lady of the wood came to, in fullness before me stood. Her presence instilled a yearning to linger as long as I could. She pressed her body into mine, the dam released a flood. My soul's grew shoots into the sunlight bathed my bursting buds. I met a maiden in the wood, a reckoning in me stirred.
Hi, I'm Susan Odell Underwood. I'm reading from Jefferson City, Tennessee today, where I live. This is my first time with the Women of Appalachia project. Really happy to be here. This is a long rant poem. I've cut it in about half, I hope. It's called Holler. I saw the best minds of my generation outsourced, exported from the mountain south, lured by the shiny metropolis, seduced by suburban retail and big salaries and common ground with people who never heard of Appalachia or who pronounce it wrong. My cousins hightailed it out of here, the epidemiologist in San Francisco, curator of master drawings in Rome, the librarian, corporate lawyer, NASA consultant, geneticist, marine biologist, the naval officer in Hawaii, my engineer brother designing war weaponry in Texas, all of them flying home for holidays and funerals of relatives who never once stepped foot on a plane. They count me lucky to keep on living here, where the standards, they say to my face, are low, at least. They say I'm an enviable 2-hour drive from where our family land, still in the family, runs from hill to hill in a holler cut through by the South Holston River. They say they're jealous of my meager house with English ivy and moss, my brief walk on cracked sidewalks to my college office, past defunct, run-down, boarded-up small-town Dreer. They say at least I'm geographically close to home. Same as I do, they still call it home, but don't realize I'm not any closer to those roots than they are, that I might as well be as far gone as any of them in exile, that the leftover family land isn't deeded to me, that the family that was ours is mostly dead and gone anyway, that the culture they idealize is past, as distant from me as it is from them, my head in a book instead of bumping a cow's udder, my life behind a desk instead of behind a plow, my yard full of shade trees and grass to mow, no front porch, no back porch, no room or sun to grow a garden, even if I knew how. My house with internet cables connecting me to students who ask in emails about the region's literature I've assigned. What's an outhouse? What's fatback? What's a pig in a poke? In dark days, I ask myself why it has to be me to teach what's history now. Why keeping me keeping the antique stories and old names of this part of the country, Appalachia, America, as if the language and terrain were barbed wired into me, when some days I swear I'd just as soon put to some other use in some other place the future my ancestors pictured for me, hopeful I'd have a better, easier, more refined life than theirs, than this. Then there are some days when I know I'm lucky I can't ever escape, that it's my duty, my call right here to teach kids who are the first in their families to go to college. They read sonnets and write essays about sonnets, and soon they're tempted against their will to write sonnets and stories and papers on Faulkner and Foucault, all the time running in place, this place. They are leaving a little bit, never suspecting my ruse, my real agenda. That someday their parents and cousins and grandparents will say goodbye to them because I have helped prove that they are smart and strong enough to leave our beautiful, heartbreaking hills, that they've been born and raised to get the hell out, nothing for them here, no cyber commute far enough, no library big enough to contain them, no museum that's going to quench their desire for color, 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 no cocktail party too sophisticated, not to mention noise and lights and big paychecks and every rich taste at their hungry fingertips. Like them, I have been starved every day of my life, thinking I should just sell my birthright, get the hell out while I can. Thinking sometimes I've been a rube, cheated, left behind in Podunkville, bohunk, poverty-ridden, low class, back into beyond rural, no, nothing, nowhere. And I have ordered expensive shoes online to try and make up the difference. And on the phone, I change my accent with telemarketers and pollsters I have no reason to impress. I have lowered my voice and ducked my head and grinned and felt murderous when in other places I speak and people look at me with surprise and disappointment and ask me where I'm from, as if the mothership has landed, as if I've arrived with a pone of cornbread in my hand and lice in my hair and an ignorant dullard brain in my head. America, Appalachia gave up nothing to you in its timber, its coal, its dignity, nothing compared to giving up its children, whom you will begrudgingly agree to take if they straighten up and dumb down their ways and even out their hick accents and smarten up their acts and blend and homogenize. America, I'm not here like my ancestors who made charcoal and pig iron that started this country. I'm not here digging out coal or zinc or lobbying for or against strip mining or mountaintop coal removal, although I know you are still up to your tricks. I'm not picketing your coal-burning plants that muddy up my air while you breathe clean, or protesting the hydroelectric dams that broke our rivers. I'm not logging any forests like my granddaddy who built your furniture. I'm not raising any tobacco like my daddy did to put me through college. I'm not making quilts or weaving baskets like my grandmothers did for you to buy on vacation. I'm not preaching Jesus or hellfire. I'm not handling any snakes or distilling moonshine, which you like to read about. I'm not playing a banjo or fiddle or singing any godforsaken melancholy ballad. What I'm doing is way more dangerous, teaching a bunch of kids that the brains God gave them are for something besides balls, football stats, and NASCAR drivers' numbers. That we've been called backward and barbarian and heathen and simple and quaint and lazy and uncivilized, a hybrid, mongrel, monstrous underclass, that they get to decide what to call themselves next, that they have a choice. I spend hours marking their every error I can catch, using all the energy I have, without giving away how truly terrified I am for them, of the possible dead-end hourly pay and time clock punching that's historically nearly unavoidably theirs, of the threat of a vertical backyard behind the double-wide trailer of their futures, or of a future they might spend like me, a traitor, teaching the next generation to leave. America, I'm getting them as ready as I can to climb onto that airplane or Greyhound or into their daddy's Hemi pickup, or to hitch a ride with somebody eastbound, westbound, northbound, to put on their boots and take up their beds and you haul it out of here. America, I'm putting my hillbilly shoulder to the wheel.
I'm Leslie Clark, and my poem is called Testament. When I was born, my mother loved me at first sight. Isn't she beautiful? What's her name? She asked. The doctor and the nurse smiled kindly, she recalled. My father was in Korea at the time. Isn't she beautiful? What's her name? She asked. No one knew when my father would return. My father was in Korea at the time. My mother held me close and kissed my head. No one knew when my father would return. Life is seldom what you expected it to be. My mother held me close and kissed my head. I nestled into her comforting embrace. Life is seldom what you expected it to be. I grew up with a sense of absolute love. I nestled into her comforting embrace. I've never wished for anything as much. I grew up with a sense of absolute love. The doctor and the nurse smiled kindly, she recalled. I've never wished for anything as much. When I was born, my mother loved me at first sight. Thank you.
My name is Tamara Baxter, and I live in a Colonial Heights area of Kingsport, Tennessee. And this is my second year with the Women of Appalachia Project. I'm so happy to be here. I'm reading from Killing Oranges, a short fiction, and it's on page 168. Killing Oranges. I read in a murder mystery magazine at the back of Ziggy's newsstand that I can kill my husband by driving a nail in his ear while he is asleep, then pull it out. No one will find out. The ear does not bleed, so there is no evidence, no blood. That is important to me because I hate the sight of blood. An icicle will work as well as a nail. The evidence melts into a puddle and evaporates. Tricky though, because icicles are unpredictable. The icicle could melt in my sweaty hand if I hesitate too long. Too long before winter. There are long, sharp icicles frozen to the guttering during January. I can kill him through his eyeball too. pull back the lid, drive a wire through the corner of the eye, through the open socket, carefully, carefully, into the soft tissue of the brain. Make sure it is a fine, strong wire, long and thin. Mother's pearl hat pin? Make sure I have steady hands, determination, and concentration. Make sure he's doped into a deep sleep. He will lie still, cooperate. Be warned about the blood, a drop or two at least, the magazine says. I'm sure now I must kill him with a nail. I am used to nails. Daddy was a carpenter. He built houses and banks and buildings for companies. Daddy drank too and hammered nails. I am used to the pounding of nails in planks. I'm used to the smell of liquor, rough beard like sandpaper on my face, eyes swimming through hazy puddles above me, but never the blood in beads along the floor where I run to find Mother. Mother? 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 Daddy would not build for Mother, not even if the doors fell from their hinges. Stubborn. I consider buying a gun, but there will be evidence, papers to sign, the gun salesman, squint-eyed, attentive, a sponge soaking up every characteristic of my face, remembering my nervous twitching, my silly questions, my excuses. With a gun, there will be blood. The body, getting rid of it, and the gun, too much mess, too risky, too nerve-wracking. Perhaps I will manage the gun. I will wait until he's asleep, put a pillow over his head, point, pull the trigger. I will be scared. He will not drink enough of the liquor I've laced with sleeping medicine. I'm standing over him. I will close my eyes a second to gather courage, and he will wake up suddenly, grab the gun from my sweaty hands and shoot me. My blood all over the floor and the walls, all over Daddy. He will tell them he killed me in self-defense. They will believe Daddy. No, I am smarter than Mother, much smarter. I find ear in the encyclopedia, and with my husband's carpenter's pencil, I draw 22 ears along a 2x4 from a pile of lumber he's saving. I practice hammering nails in the wooden ears late in the afternoons in the back of the garage. I use my husband's workbench, his nails, his hammer. He is a carpenter. He builds houses and banks and buildings for companies. The girls are playing outdoors in their little rubber swimming pool. I hear them giggling between the pounds of my hammer. Their giggling distracts me, and I hit my thumb. There is blood on the plank, drops of my blood on the white plank. What are you doing, Mommy? Why are you hammering nails? They have found me at the back of the garage, sucking the hurt from my thumb. I'm building a new doghouse for Trixie, I tell them, tasting salt. They believe me. Can we hammer too, they giggle, pulling a ball peen from their daddy's toolbox. No, no, no. I shout at them, you must never, never, never hammer nails. They cover their ears. Look at me. They run away to the pool. I do not understand their eyes. Why my little girls look at me that way when I'm trying so hard? They do not understand that I have seen him. He does not know I watch, but I've seen him patting their ruffled swimsuits, kissing them at bedtime. What in the hell are you nailing up? He shouts at me. He's home from work early. I am caught with 22 nails, big ones hammered in, some crooked, some straight, into his ears. He surprises me. I jump, but I have steadier nerves than Mother. Hammering nails is a new therapy we've been trying in our group. Releases tension, helps me focus. I feel better already. I smiled up at him as he studies me, studies my intentions nailed up 22 different ways. Don't ruin all that good lumber. It's damned expensive. His eyes jerk over me, cold, like he is looking at me through ice. You're damned expensive. He always says this when I mention my therapy group. Mother made cookies. That was her therapy. She found the recipe in a ladies' magazine, Frustration Cookies. It's a simple recipe of flour and loads of butter like shortbread. You pound them, the recipe says. Pound, pound, pound them. The more you pound, the better they taste. The more you pound, the better you feel. Mother let me help. We pounded the dough together on a wooden board. The dough gets lighter and whiter, never black and blue like you would expect. Daddy eats them all. He smiles. We feel better. He is inside the kitchen. I hear the top pop off a beer can. The sound of the TV comes out the screen door, the rattle of newspapers, the smell of bologna and cheese. I can see everything he does, even when I am not looking. Mother believed in therapy. She learned assertiveness training, but she never learned how to say no. I have learned to watch. Learning to drive nails is not easy. I have tried all sizes. Thin and long is best, the magazine says, but they bend easily. I try big and little hammers from his tool chest. I balance them in my hand. Daddy says the art of driving nails is in the flick of the wrist. He tries to teach me, but I do not want to learn. My wrist hurts. I take a break. I eat a navel orange. I should not be hammering wood, I tell myself, looking at the navel orange I'm eating, peeling and eating it, a lobe at a time, peeling it with my finger in the air. I am all wrong. The ear is soft and spongy, not hard like pounding planks. I go to the grocery store to buy navel oranges. The checkout man makes a joke. Got a craving from navels, huh? He winks at me like he knows. His eyes follow the ruffles bouncing on my little girl's dresses out the electric doors. He bears careful watching. I take home 2 10-pound sacks of navel oranges, nothing else. I kill them all, one after the other, pounding them through their soft rubbery ears, pounding into their soft brains with a flick of my wrist, with my hammer and a long thin nail, with their ears turned up to me out of the white pillow. The magazine did not tell me he would jerk like a live wire fallen into water, that he would jump and jerk and fall into a naked heap like a rumpled blanket on top of the bed. Too late. The 5th of Johnny Walker's empty on the bedstand. I make sure. I put on my clothes. I keep the girls in the kitchen. I give them a bowl of Cheerios and milk. You can eat supper in peace tonight. You can sleep in peace tonight, I tell them. They stare at me silently from behind their bowls. Their eyes float on the milk. Their spoons are pointing. I tried to get him awake. I tell the ambulance driver. I shook him. He would not wake up. He drank the bottle dry all at once. Down, down, down in big swallows. Mother, mother, mother. The ambulance driver chews gum with his mouth open. He nods without looking at me, writes on a clipboard. Possible alcohol poisoning. I watch his writing out of the corner of my eye. The ambulance driver and that other man bring in a plank bed on wheels. He is very still. His head is crooked on his pillow. His eyes are open, floating up, white like dead minnows. The magazine is right. There is nary a drop of blood. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Anna Egan Smucker, and I live in Bridgeport, West Virginia. And this is my 6th year with the Women of Appalachia Project. I have one poem to read. It's called Miss J. Spring, when the waters of Corbin and Glady Forks swirl high, you might run aground where they meet, churning, whirling around Turtle Rock Island. Years ago, an artist looked at its banks, littered with rocks. imagined a home, a new life tuned to water and woods. From up the hollow, she hired boys with muscles, troublesome, she'd heard, but they knew stone. And so, with wheelbarrows and cement, they began her house, a tall round tower, a slate roof. After she bailed the boys out of jail twice, they built whatever she wanted, took to calling her Miss J. And now, on that island where stone flanks gardens, beds a maze of paths, flags a patio, and anchors a house, a world, a life, she is old, almost blind. Says she's not afraid of the new guys camping rowdy up the creek. If they make trouble, she'll just call her bad boy friends, now young grandfathers, but still known, she says, for their shotguns and short tempers. Thank you.
Howdy, you guys. My name is Diane Tarantini, and I am coming to you from Morgantown. This is my first year with the project, and I'm beyond excited. And I'm going to bring you a bit of summer right now. My story is titled, The Best Part is Jumping In. Today's going to be a scorcher. Want to go swimming? I know the perfect place. The water's so beautiful. A deep, saturated teal, like blue raspberry and lime slush puppies mixed together, or a fancy cocktail made of Midori and blue caracal. The water temperature is always just right, not so cold your heart stops when you dive in, but not like bathwater either. The best part is jumping in. But first you have to climb the rocky, dry path. Be careful to watch out for the pool tabs. They'll slice your foot right open, make you bleed like crazy. To be safe, take turns looking where you're going and down at the ground. A tetanus shot might be a good idea in case you get cut or bit. Oh gosh, wait, you don't even know how to get there. First, you cross the bridge from West Virginia to Ohio and turn right. Then you need to watch for the old Esso station on the left. After that, be on the lookout for the Wild Boys place, also on the left. After that, with its faded red barn and split rail fence, the property resembles a farm. The Wild Boys that live there are nuts, crazy, cute too, in that I'm bad and I might just convince you to be bad too kind of way. They live life more outdoors than in, up at the swimming hole, camping out in the woods, down at the river, fishing. The one time they took us in their barn, I saw the scariest thing ever. Saddest too. They kept a pit bull in there, back before the breed was cool, back before Michael Vick got caught in his vice. They couldn't let the dog outside because he was crazy vicious. He'd kill anything with 4 legs. It was the guy's fault. They turned the dog that way, probably to make him fight. So he'd hate all animals. Using a rag, they'd pick up something dead, then spend a good 20 minutes smacking the dog in the face with it. They started small and worked their way up. Squirrels to possums to groundhogs. According to the boys, one time the dog escaped a barn and killed a neighbor's goat. I kid you not. After that, they made him wear one of those super mean collars with big spikes that dug into his neck if he made a wrong move, and they chained him to a post in the barn. I never understood why the dog hated other animals. Why didn't he hate the boys? Heck, why didn't we? It was the Wild Boys who showed us the swimming hole. Well, one of them. Shortly after we passed the Esso station, that's when we spotted the guys. sitting out at the picnic table in their front yard beneath the shade of a sprawling maple tree, throwing back PBRs. After Susie coasted her Subaru wagon into their driveway, we sent Laura Jane over to ask for directions. Boys will tell her anything, especially when she's wearing her teeny weeny white bikini with blue jean short shorts. Suze and I rolled down our car window so we could catch the directions to the swimming hole. Laura Jane ducked between the top and middle split rail, and as she sashayed over to the boys, the biggest one snickered. Well, what have we here? I seen that same sort of swing on a back porch once. From the car, we witnessed Laura flashing her brilliant, ultra bright smile and flipping her almost black, bra strap length hair behind her golden shoulder. How you guys doing? My friends and I'd like to check out the secret swimming hole that's supposed to be around here. Y'all know where it's at? You mean the filled out the strip mine? The youngest one said. He was good looking, kind of reminded me of John Denver, only younger. Susan and I watched the bigger boy's eyes as they went all squinty and their hands closed into fists. Them's pissed, Susie whispered. Ignoring his friends, little John Denver grinned up at Laura Jane. She's close to 6 foot tall, then pointed toward the woods. See that rusted oil drum? When y'all get to it, keep your eyes peeled because the turn up the mountain's right beyond that. The biggest boy shoved little John. Oh, man, why'd you do that? We don't want no girls up there. Says who, little John said. He turned back to Laura. I can take y'all up if you want. John Denver's name was actually Danny. Why is it called the strip mine? I said from the back seat. He twisted to face me. Because that's what it used to be. When there was no more coal, they flooded it. Wait till you see it. The water's the coolest color ever. After Susie parked the car, Danny led us up the steep, crunchy peanut butter path. Along the way, he held back brambly branches so they wouldn't scratch our sleek, shaved that morning legs. All of a sudden, the trail ended at the edge of a sandstone cliff, 20 or more feet above the opaque and aqua water. As soon as I asked, well, how do you get down there? I slapped my hands over my ears because I didn't want to know the answer. I hate heights. Danny snorted. You jumped, silly. He stepped toward me. I blinked, and before I knew it, I was hurtling through the dry July air next to Danny. Over and over, I backstroked my arms, trying to, save myself, make it back to the cliff's edge. When I hit the water, my eyes and mouth slammed shut. My hair felt like silky seaweed as it brushed my arms. I opened my eyes, and through the turquoise murk, I saw the sun beaming above me. I shoved down handfuls of water to get up to the light, to the air. Once there, I dog paddled, whipping my head left and right in an effort to locate my gal pals. They waved from way up there. I cut my hand and twirled it again and again. Jump in! The water's awesome! 20 feet away, Danny floated on his back, smiling at the clean slate of the sky. I stretched out and did the same. Filled my lungs with little puffs of air so I could stay on top of the water. After a while, Danny used his right foot to point out the path that led back up to the top. As good as this water feels, he said, the best part is jumping in.
Hey, my name is Eve Odom, and I am going to read an essay that I wrote called Animal Instincts, and this is my first time with Women of Appalachia Project. One morning, I took my dog Luna for a walk. She's a skittish black and white, short hair border collie, super smart, but terribly scared of her own shadow. We were on our normal route to a wide side yard next to the apartment where we were living. It was cold and a hard frost covered the ground that sparkled iridescent with the morning light. The frozen grass softly crunched under each step. A black chain link fence separated the yard from a large wooded natural habitat that had a nice stream running through the property. Most of the trees were bare, having let go of their leaves in the last few weeks, and you could see through the once heavily concealed area. As Luna and I first entered the yard, I spotted a large doe across the fence. She immediately saw me too and froze. Hi, pretty girl, you just taking a morning walk too? Luna never saw her, too busy smelling the dog urine of those before us. So after a few moments, we released one another and moved on. A few feet later, I spotted a large white mass in the trees, and this stopped me in my tracks. It sat perched on a lower tree limb. It had to be a white owl from its sheer size and color. I was stunned. This was very special. I could feel it. I waited for a minute and watched for movement, but I didn't see the slightest twig stir. Slowly, without making a noise, I pulled out my phone and tried to zoom in, but I couldn't really get close enough for the ultra zoom close-up shot. After snapping a few pictures, I slid the phone back in my pocket. I returned to the apartment and excitedly explained to my husband, Mitch, my discovery. I saw a white owl, I said, unwrapping from my layers of clothes. What? He said. I pushed the photos in front of him and he took the phone and swiped through it, looking at each one intently. Oh, cool, he said, studying them. Later that day, we were driving down I-26 and I saw another white bird. Oh my God, there's another white bird. I screamed in delight, pointing out the window. I got a better look at this one. It had a round white belly with a red streak on its head, which Google identified as a red-headed woodpecker. That's the second white bird I've seen today, I declared with amazement and self-amusement. This all must mean something, I thought. I tried to raise all my earth baby energy and tap into the vibration of the natural world around me and bring my intuition into focus. What were all these animals trying to say to me? I tried to empty my mind and let it come to me. I imagined rivers of energy just pouring into me. And the thought that kept coming back around was, you're going to have a visitor coming soon. That was all I could think. And that very night I did. I got my very first hemorrhoid. We had just bought a new house and were in the process of painting it before we moved in. And we spent all day walking the aisles of Lowe's and shopping for materials. We loaded our carts with rollers and drop cloths, sanding squares, edging tools, rags, and basically the entire paint section. That night we sanded, edged, and rolled. And then we sanded, edged, and rolled again. Before we headed back to the apartment, we unloaded boxes full of things we probably should have thrown away. Lamps, bike parts, and other typical moving items that you always wonder how you accumulated. There was one box that I tried to pick up, but strain as I must, I could not pick it up. It must have been full of bricks, which isn't surprising because Mitch never throws anything away. And I think at that very moment, a small, hard, and very irritating little monster lump appeared near my anus. On our ride back to the apartment, I scooted my bottom across the truck seat as we drove down the interstate, trying to soothe this newfound irritation. After turning on the seat warmers, I wiggled around, trying to eliminate whatever problem was taking over back there, wondering why my ass was suddenly itching like I had wiped myself with poison ivy. Oblivious to my dilemma, Mitch silently drove us back. When I got home to the bathroom, I was mortified with my young, unsunspotted hand grazed over a lump that should only be found in the elderly. I immediately got my phone out so I could see what was going on back there, but my instincts knew. This earth baby knew a hemorrhoid, an external hemorrhoid to be exact, and it was confirmed via photo on the screen in front of me. I was falling apart. In the car, on the way to grab some food, Mitch complained about how he thought he had COVID. I said, "Oh, you want to hear my new illness?" "You have COVID too," he said. The sunlight pushed through the windows, giving the impression of warmth on that cold morning. "No, worse than COVID?" He looked at me like I was crazy. I said, "I have a hemorrhoid." White rushed over his face. And before that exact moment, I have never seen my husband not want to have sex with me so much. "Oh my God, what? How?" he said, disgust draping every word that rolled off his tongue. A small laugh escaped my lips because he was so floored by this declaration that was somehow even worse than his theoretical COVID diagnosis. But of course, this was his 10th COVID self-diagnosis. I think trying to pick up that box last night. That week, he would randomly ask me if I was still sick. Sick, I would say. I would be confused by his question. You know, whispering, the hemorrhoid. Oh yeah, I still have that, I would say, seriously, but laughing to myself. Didn't this man see me give birth to our son? I spent much of the week taking baths and relaxing and sitting on a heating pad pushed up between my butt cheeks. All in all, it turned out not to be so bad for me. Also, I insisted that I couldn't lift anything else during our move. Sorry, that might hurt the old hemorrhoid. I sang almost blissfully and waddled away. Where others might have been embarrassed by their little friend, I leaned into it. When I went grocery shopping and they asked if I needed help out to my car, I said, yes, I believe I do because I have a terrible hemorrhoid. Or when we went to the restaurant and they were sitting us at a table, I said, oh, we're going to need a booth because I'm in a delicate position. You know, hemorrhoid, I would whisper. People were usually so shocked that they were always willing to help. After a few weeks, it had shrunk back down to a very tiny spot and the throbbing itching had subsided. My visitor, whose relationship started out very irritating but progressed into something very special, peaking on friendly, had almost left me as suddenly as it had appeared. Our moving process was slow, especially since I stopped lifting boxes. And a week later, Luna and I took another walk in the side yard at the apartment. I was so excited, hoping to see more wildlife now that I was in tune with my energy, chakras aligned and obviously vibrating with the highest of frequencies. Certainly my aura was shining freaking amazing hues of blue. I searched the woods eagerly and I looked for any sign of movement. Then I saw it, the white owl in the same spot I had seen it a week ago in broad daylight. I knew then that it wasn't an owl. Seeing a white owl in daylight is almost impossible, but seeing it twice in the same spot, well, that's not an owl. It was white trash perched on a low limb. So much for my animal instincts. I pulled out my green plastic poop bag, picked up the dog's steaming mound and threw it in the pet garbage can and walked back to my apartment. Thanks.
I'm Mimi Merritt, and I live in Bluefield, West Virginia, but today I am reading from Washington, D.C., where it's snowing. And this is my third time with the Women of Appalachia Project. Mercy. She thought I wasn't listening. My grandmother chatting with antique aunties about wrinkle creams and laxatives, but busy dressing Barbie dolls in the parlor's far corner. I heard her remember falling down church steps at 15. An uncushioned pew still hurt her tailbone, she said. She seldom took her prayers to church. Preachers preach love sometimes, but mostly fear, while she brewed sassafras roots into tea for sick friends and served cornbread and fried chicken to hobos that my mother remembered long ago knocking at the back door. Church pews were for funerals, for her firstborn, laid to rest at 46 from a blood clot bursting in his brain, for her baby sister, 17 years her junior, a once round-faced toddler who grew up frail and worn out from pain and the pills that killed it. The Sunday morning excuses were many, still in her slip when church bells rang, uncertain where she had hung her best dress. Dentures kept in a bedside water glass were missing. A dizzy headache needed a BC powder and ginger ale. An uneasy stomach, a soda cracker. The church would be cold, and the newspaper tempted. The beautiful First Lady smiling on the front page, a young mother who soon would be photographed in a blood-smattered pink suit. And days later, in black, face veiled beside her little boy, saluting his father's casket. My grandmother did not like church pews. I saw her kneeling by her bed at night, though, gray hair hanging long down her back, hair that by day she swept into a knot at neck's nape, wisps escaping as she fried flounder and beat biscuits in her small kitchen's damp heat. I saw her on her knees, ghost-like by her bed, and when I crept closer in the dark, I heard her asking for her daily bread, and my grandmother, pained by wooden seats, confessed her trespasses on knees pressed hard against wooden floorboards. One Sunday before church, we found her in her garden, tending roses, knees in dirt, hem of her blue silk dress trailing loamy soil, her black patent leather purse reflecting sun, as though she had been on her way to join us. Maybe she had walked down back steps, the church, a short walk in a town of many steeples, when her eyes, blue as her dress and far-sighted with age, spotted the peak's rose, its yellow and pink petals catching sun while framing a deeper coral center. Maybe she had walked toward it to smell a fragrance, sweeter than the Chanel she often dabbed at her wrist, remembering my grandfather giving her that bottled scent of rose and jasmine. Maybe it was his last smile, or the rosebud often pinned to his shirt pocket that she saw as she dropped to her knees to pull close the peace bloom, her face arched to the rising sun.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steph Kendrick from Albany, Ohio. This is my 4th year with the Women of Appalachia project. I'm going to be reading, starting on page 76, about halfway through, What to Expect, Unplanned Pregnancy, Postpartum Anxiety, and Too Many Dead Cats. The week after the dog suffocated the cat with too much love, or this is how I imagined it happened. I was asleep and don't know this for sure. I was having a cigarette on my front porch because remember, I was doing absolutely fine and needed to make no changes to my health whatsoever, and heard a high-pitched mewing coming from under the porch. An abandoned kitten, barely able to raise its little head, laid emaciated and covered in crust. I snatched it up with hopes of redeeming my most recent failure. The crust was easy to bathe away, but the poor creature had given up already. I stayed up all night trying to get water and milk in it. I tried a bottle purchased for the baby who was nearing his move-out date, tried my fingertips and palms, but at about 4 in the morning, it took its final breath in my lap, emptied itself of any fluids left inside. Another reminder that I would absolutely fail at being a mother. We didn't provide a home to another creature until he left my body. In the morning of his 2nd day outside of me, while his father slept like a baby in my stiff, narrow hospital cot, I held him in my arms and stared at him while he slept. I was relieved at the ease with which he nestled so comfortably in my arms, and at the competence I showed by stabilizing his sweet head in my palm. I lifted him to my face and slowly smelled his hair, wisps of gold, barely there. He smelled like me in that he didn't smell at all. I think of the way a mother cat wastes no time licking the hell out of her kittens as soon as they return to her after having been held and loved by humans. I could do the research, but my maternal instincts, few as they are, tell me she is removing strange scent from them, rendering them hers again. He was perfect. The moment was fleeting, as all peaceful moments are, and he began stirring and wrinkling his nose for milk, or a diaper change, or because I was not comfortable. It's really hard to tell when you don't speak baby. In a panic, I moved to return him to his plastic, sterile bassinet with trembling hands so that I could determine my next move. I was alone in that room, no nurses, partner fast asleep. Why didn't I read the goddamn baby books? I thought. As I lowered him into the bassinet, I slipped, dropping him a few inches rather than laying him gently. His perfect little head bounced on the plastic, causing his perfect little face to contort and squirm for the longest second to ever pass before he screamed. I scooped him up and we cried together. And in the most beautiful case of serendipity that has not since been matched in my world, my mother walked into our hospital room and took us both into her arms. I don't remember what she said to me in that moment, but I remember she made me laugh and let me know that it wouldn't be the last time that I screwed something up as a mom. She knew the pain and the ubiquity of this too well. A working class single mother of 3, she perpetually had her hands full, and we weren't easy kids, but that's another story for another time. I learn best by making big mistakes, and let me tell you, I get that honest. I think she saved me that day, and I never told her that. Sometimes the only reason I write a piece is to leave behind bits of things I can never bring myself to say out loud. The dread that came with motherhood never left me. A decade later, I still have nightmares of him dying in my arms. Every time I punish him, I ache with thoughts of what my harshness might lead him to do, and whenever he is not with me, thoughts of awful ends play out in my head on loop. The anxiety and panic remained undiagnosed for 8 years before I discovered that I had postpartum anxiety. I always understood those feelings as repercussions of my poor decisions, symptomatic of maternal ineptness and nods from the universe, whatever that means, that I didn't deserve a healthy baby. Before becoming educated on hormones, genes, and the impacts of tremendous stress on my brain and body, I would say to myself, this is what you get for missing your birth control, for dropping out of school, for the almost adoption, for the cigarettes and the pot. And it would continue ad nauseum. Thanks to a therapist who relied just as much on the power of sage and Brené Brown as she did on actual science, I am now about 98% confident that I am not being perpetually punished. I cannot emphasize enough the power that came from understanding my brain and body. My son thrives, and he doesn't know it, but he saves me too. Not in the I finally have a purpose sort of way, but there is something installed in children that makes them a little too comfortable calling out the dishonesty and contradiction in their parents. And if the parent knows what's good for them, they listen. Thanks, everyone.
Oh my goodness, what a day we have had. And it flies by, doesn't it? It's hard to believe we've listened to so many amazing, wonderful voices. Earlier, this is Women's History Month, and here we are, all of us coming together, all kinds of women, people who identify as women, and we are lifting our voices in honor of women during this month of celebration. And I really want to thank our wonderful audience today. Thank you all for coming out. Please consider purchasing a copy or more of Women Speak, because they make wonderful gifts. And it's nice to have them on hand in case you need a gift and you are stuck and then you have a gift, right? So it's just a wonderful thing to do.